Hi, I'm Joan Dayton, and I'm an educator, business owner, and stylist. I own Evolve Hair Design in Bozeman, Montana. In this video, I will be sharing my open air balayage and custom hair painting techniques. These will help dramatically improve your blonding results and take your stylist skills to the next level. Okay, so with this technique, once the client is seated and we're going along with the consultation, if we're gonna do an open air balayage, I like to make sure that their part is where they normally like to wear it, because a lot of gals do come in and their part is to one side and you're like, okay, that must be where they wear it. And then we'll get all the way done and they're like, oh, I actually wear my hair on the other side. And we're like, could have just parted on the other side. And they're like, oh yeah, I just kind of went that way today, but that's not where I actually like it. So Alexis, with your hair, you part your hair down the center, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So it's gonna look pretty no matter where it falls. So if she did decide to flip it to the other side or to the right side or down the center, no matter what, it's gonna look great. I just like to get it to pop just a little bit brighter where they wear it most of the time. And then we want to determine whether or not the client wants a partial or a full. So a lot of times they're like, I don't know, what do you think? Or I don't really know the difference. So typically I'll explain a partial is from crown forward, a full highlight is throughout the entire head. And then once they get in the chair, if they're kind of unsure what they want, I will hand them a little mirror and then spin them to the side, lift their hair up, and then ask them, do you like to have a contrast between the top and the bottom, keeping this darker because all of this will kind of drop over top of it? Or do you like to have at least like some soft pieces to break this up if you wear your hair up a lot so that it doesn't look so dark? And then I will also turn them forward if they have long hair like hers. Split it in half, flip it forward, and kind of shake it out and ask them if this being darker is something that they like, or when they wear their hair moving around like this, if they want to have dimension and brighter pieces down through here. So with her, we've been doing a full so that this isn't really dark down here and then this is over top. We have been breaking that up, and then it's been a while since we did her last balayage. And so I want to add more dimension to brighten all of this up because it's starting to look a little bit dark down through here, but I still want it really melted so that even right now with her outgrowth, it still looks beautiful. And there's no harsh line kind of going from her outgrowth into her blonde. All of it kind of fades together. So we've done this look a few times on her in the past, and then today I just want to amp it up, break up her outgrowth, still keeping it like melted, and then add pops of highlights like throughout the whole thing. I will get her draped. I'm using a color cape. This is a little bit thicker and heavier. Especially with an open air balayage, you need to use a color cape to protect their clothing, so none of the product will seep through this. And then I'm gonna be dropping her hair as I paint it right onto the cape, so this is nice and durable for that. Okay, so looking at her hair, my rule of thumb would be to only do an open air balayage on somebody that is a level 7 or brighter, which she would fall right into that range of a level 7. So you can see her natural outgrowth through there. If it were any darker than that, you're not gonna get enough lift because the lightener will start to dry out, and then it's gonna turn kind of brassy. So hers is bright enough to be able to paint it, let it sit without any foils, and I'll still successfully get it as bright as I want it to go. Okay, so I'm gonna start with 1 scoop of Silk Lift Strong. Pour it in my color bowl, and then it's 35 mils per 1 scoop of developer, and I'm using Silk Lift's strongest developer, which is a 30, and you don't have to be scared of using the 30 volume. It's still not going to be super damaging on the hair. This lightener and developer has oils built into it, and it's the least damaging on the market. And then I always use a whisk to mix it really well. Okay, and then for a balayage, I like to use a medium color brush. So this one is a little bit more narrow. It's not like a super wide base. Okay, and then we'll start with this. And then we're gonna start in the back and move forward. Sometimes if their hair was really dark and we did need to do a balayage that was foiled, I would choose to start in the front because the lightener needs to set longer and get it to pop brighter. But with her being a dark natural blonde, I want to move from back to front. So I'm gonna kind of like pop that forward. You can pin it out of the way if needed. And then I'm gonna go down here, and with her hairline, her natural hairline, I want to section a really, really small, soft piece out and drop that down so it's pretty see-through. And then I'm gonna do baby lights and kind of weave out of that. That'll keep it really natural and sun-kissed. And then we're gonna go down here with her hairline, and then same on this side. So we'll pin this out of the way. Right out of that. With that being a really small section that's see-through, it's not going to create streakiness or like chunky pieces. It's going to be really, really soft and melted. And then I'm going to take my short color board, and there's a little bit of a curve on it. I'm going to place that directly against her scalp, pull these pieces taut, and then I'm gonna paint and saturate there to get some control, get those pieces pinned down. I'm gonna bring this closer to the base, and I am gonna paint this all the way up to her root, but I'm keeping it really kind of like thin with the amount, so it's not super saturated, and then this will keep it soft as well, and it will help you avoid making a mess, where if you saturate it too much and you get really globby, then it's gonna bleed onto the rest of the hair. It's kind of like softly feathered in, and then I turn my brush vertically and kind of tap into that. Then I'm gonna fully saturate the ends and paint it all the way through. And then I can drop that directly down onto the cape. So now you could choose to like cut this piece, do the bottom, or go to the other side, or you could go like here, do the same thing on the other side. So whatever works for you, either way is fine. I'm gonna choose just to keep like going with it, and I'm gonna do a horizontal skinny little piece down through here. So following her hairline. Put this back up out of the way again. Pull this taut. You do want to make sure that the pieces that you choose to weave are ideally equally distanced apart and same amount of hair that you're picking up, or close to it for consistency. So again, going vertical with this to keep it really soft and feathered in. And then saturating all the way down to the ends. I have a white towel here that I can kind of like clean the edge of my color board as well as I go, so that if that does have lightener on it, you're not putting that right onto her scalp and creating other lines as well. And then you can kind of see like consistency with the distance between these pieces and the amount of hair that I weaved. Saturating all the way to the ends. Okay, so now that I've got her hairline done, I could choose to keep going here if I wanted a ton of dimension and to like get that really, really bright. But a lot of times what I like to do is right above where I've done those pieces all the way to the base. Down through here, I'll kind of like to connect from where I started that little baby light and take a triangle down to the midpoint in her head. So I'll go and drop this piece down at an angle. And then I'll do the same thing over on this side at a diagonal section. So I almost have like two triangles here, and then this is into a V. And then from this piece that I dropped down, I want to weave a triangle out of here. So this would be the flat portion of it. I'm gonna leave some hair out in between that piece and this, and then same over here. And then now I'm going to take this triangle and balayage this piece. So I'm gonna paint this all the way up to her base, but I'm still using a small amount of product at the very top here. These pieces up here are not gonna pop as bright as the ends because they're not as saturated, but it will kind of like melt into it. So this will still get some lift, but it won't be as bright. I like to go in and kind of like break up that center part instead of doing like two sharp pieces through there. I'll kind of like soften that a little bit. You're gonna wanna look at this visually and think it doesn't look like it's gonna end up being chunky because all of that is like softly flowing into the rest. And then I'm gonna grab my color board, drop this on top of it, and then I can kind of like fully saturate through here. Still softly blending this out and then painting lightener to saturate everything on the ends. And I like to go back over it to smooth the lightener into it so that it's not super globby as well, so that it doesn't get messy. And again, does not cause any bleeding onto the rest of the hair. If you get too much up in here and you feel like it is messy, you can just go back in with your fingers and kind of like blend it back out, so no problem there. And then I'm gonna do the same thing over on this section as well. So I'm gonna carve a little triangle out of there, leave a little bit here, a little bit there, and then I'll paint this full piece. Since that piece already has some highlighting through it, I'm gonna kind of keep it off of there and then choose to put it over here where it's a little bit darker. And then that will all blend out. Okay, so now we're gonna move into horizontal sections. So those are kind of like the only ones in the back that I do on a diagonal. And I think on her, I'm just gonna choose to do about maybe a ½ inch to 2/3 of an inch above that last section, and then I'll just go horizontal across. So I did those two pieces. So now I think I'm gonna start with 3 on this next one. So I'll put one here and then one here and one here. So 3 triangles. And then I'll kind of rotate depending on her previous highlights and how bright we wanna go. I'll do like rotating from balayage pieces to some baby lights in between and kind of go back and forth depending. So I'm gonna go right in the middle first and take my first triangle. And I'm going fairly deep with it. That's probably at least like 2 inches right in there that this section is. So I pull this taut. Taking my color brush vertically and softly feathering that in up top. And then I'm going to do this section over here. If you want to go really bright with your open air balayage, you'll want to connect corner to corner. So there's these 2 pieces here. So I'm going to grab this piece right next to it and create my triangle there. So these connect together. If you want more subtle and you don't want it quite as bright, then you can leave some of this out and do a triangle space further away. Okay, and then I can move on to the next section, and we're going to keep this horizontal as well. So I'm going to drop down about 1/2 inch all the way across here. And then I'm going to do some little baby lights all the way up to the base here, and then some more triangle work up top. So I'm going to take a thin little slice here and then softly weave out of this. Okay, making sure that my color board is clean at the top to place this right against her scalp. And then I'll wrap her hair down and taut here. Paint those pieces down to toes saturated, and then softly feather these in. And I kind of just like pull the board and paint as I go, making sure that everything isn't too saturated. And then I'm going to move over to this side and do the same thing here. So I'll slice out a small section, leave a baby light from there. Clean the edge of my board, place it against the scalp. And then vertically feather in the base. All of that is blended out, and then I will saturate all of the ends. I can either choose to leave out some little pieces and baby light this so that soft little bright pieces fall over the back, or if you want more depth with some of the natural in there, then you can take your triangles from the very top of it and just paint those, and then you'll still have some of the natural between. So that one is kind of just personal preference, and you can try it both ways. So I'm gonna choose to take just this tiny little piece, bring that forward, pin that out of the way. I'm gonna do 2 triangles here, and then I will paint that with baby lights and drop it down over it. So from the center of the head, I'm gonna start the corner of my triangle. And then I'm gonna balayage that piece there. So I'm getting that right up to her root, but I'm not quite hitting her scalp. And then I'm using very little product right at the base, and then using more saturation a couple inches down from it, so that will pop a little bit brighter. If you feel like you get too much in between here or get a glob, you can use the tail of your color brush and kind of wiggle it in there and smooth those pieces back out. Just making sure everything is really softly blended. And then I'm going to drop my color or my color board a little bit higher on here because I want to saturate this midsection higher up to get more brightness on top. Okay, so I have this next triangle that is connected from this corner to this corner. And I'm gonna do the same where I'm painting the lightener all the way up to the base and then saturating the center so that these two pieces pop a little bit brighter on top. So looking at those visually, you can tell that they're going to be really blended and melted in. There's nothing with those that looks really streaky. It's very softly painted at the top, and then will pop right at the ends where all of that hair is fully saturated. And then I'm going to take just this tiny little piece that I left out and then do a baby light that will drop over top of these, and that will create a really soft sun-kissed look. So a baby light would be just really soft little tiny pieces that do not look streaky. It just kind of creates that like sun-kissed, more natural look. So if you take a thin enough section, which this is really small and kind of like you can see through it, you will also be weaving like tiny little pieces. So it's not like a really thick chunk of hair, and it just creates like more of a melted highlight look. If this was too thick of a parting or too heavy of a weave, it would create streakiness, and we want to avoid that. Okay, so I'm just dropping that right over top, and then that will create a little bit of softness to overlay. And then now we will move on to the front sections. And since she has her hair parted down the center, it doesn't matter which side that I start on, but if she had a side part, let's say she parted her hair on the right side, then I would choose to start on the left side so that this side can process a little bit longer once I get to the top, because this section is going to be faster to put highlights in since it's smaller. But with them being even, it doesn't matter which side. So I'm just going to start on her left side. So we'll move over here. And then similar to what I did in the back, starting out at her hairline, I'm going to rock her hair away from her face, take my tail comb and section out a soft little piece right here along where her hair grows naturally, and kind of kick that down. We'll pin this back out of the way. And then I'm going to pull this down away from that section, weave a soft little highlight through here. Clean off my color board, and then take this all the way to the base as well. So then if she wears her hair down and tucks it behind her ear, these little pieces won't be so dark. It'll create really soft, little dimension at the front. And then when she wears her hair up in a ponytail or back, it's not gonna look dark down through here. After I place that one, I typically will do one more at the hairline here. So I'm kind of just like going with the angle of the head. So we'll take right around her ear, a little piece here as well. Drop that down, pin this up out of the way, and then leave some soft little pieces from there as well. And apply the lightener the same way. Okay, now I'm gonna be moving to a horizontal section. So from where the end of that is, I'm gonna go horizontally through here, part that, drop it down. Always getting the rest of the hair out of the way. And then I'm gonna carve a triangle out of this piece. And when she wears her hair back, I'm kind of thinking about that. Like she's gonna be pulling it up. I wanna make sure that all of this isn't too dark. So I'm only gonna leave just a tiny, tiny bit for softness through there and depth. And then I'm gonna leave a little bit more out through here. And I'm taking that triangle section all the way from the front to this back quadrant. Through here, I'm painting it all the way up to the base and then kind of directing it back to see where that is gonna live when she wears her hair up. And I'm gonna paint just a little bit through here. If you keep this with less saturation on the brush, then you'll be safe when you drop it down that it's not gonna bleed onto the section below it. If it's globbed on there, it will bleed and it'll cause like marks that are not desired. Okay, so I'm gonna bring this section back down. Where her part is, I'm gonna kick this little section down. And then through here where there's the natural recession, I might grab just a few more little hairs. It doesn't need to be high density, just a couple little wisps. And then I'm going to do soft little baby lights through there. So then all of that is really blended out when she wears it back as well. And then we'll still balayage and kind of break up the rest of this. But I always like to make sure that their hairline is done in a very intentional way, because you'll get a lot of complaints where people come in and certain areas are really bright and others are really dark and it's not consistent throughout the head. So this creates consistency and looks pretty, so then they can move their hair around and it doesn't only look good when it falls in one place. So So bring these forward. Leave soft little pieces out of here. Drop those little guys down, but still kind of out of her eyes to the side. Clean up my color board. Place this right up against the scalp. Kind of pin those down and then vertically feather all of that in all the way up to the base. And then saturate all the way through the ends and pull your color board over to the side and then drop those pieces gently out of her eyes. You want to make sure that that lightener is far enough from her eyes that it's not going to create any burning or discomfort for her, but it's also not going to be messy into the rest of the hair. So those are out of the way, but they're not going to bleed onto anything else. With these last couple of sections, I'm gonna choose, with this being kind of like the natural recession area, I'm gonna drop this down and place a baby light in here rather than a big triangle, just so then that's really soft when she does have it back. And then I will do one more little tiny thin slice with baby lights up top and a couple balayage pieces in here. So this next one is going to be a baby light section, so horizontally. And I'm gonna have it come all the way to the front here, so right into hitting that first piece that I weaved her hairline from. This is another good example of consistency where the amount of hair weaved and the distance between them is nice, and like you can tell that it. With this last horizontal balayage section, I'm gonna choose with her width of her head to do 2 balayage pieces. So I'm gonna do a triangle here and a triangle here. I'm dropping just a little bit down there for depth. Cut this in half. So again, a couple of inches here. And then I'm gonna paint this all the way up to her scalp and rock this back. I want that to be kind of bright when she pulls her hair back. So I'm gonna feather some soft lightener down kind of into this area as well. You not only want to think about how their hair is going to look when it's down, but you also always want to check and make sure it's going to look really good when they wear it up as well. this piece is connecting corners, and then the back of this is going to touch the back quadrant. So everything is connecting at this point just to get her nice and bright. Okay, so we've got that painted in there. And then my last piece on her left side is this top little tiny section where she parts her hair. So I'll bring this down, weave out these little guys all the way to the front and the back. Top of it. And then that will create some soft little fun pieces throughout the whole kit. So then on her right side, I'm just gonna go ahead and do the exact same techniques.